The galaxy was vast, filled with countless stars, planets, and civilizations. Among them, humanity was still considered new, a small and struggling newcomer trying to find its place in a universe dominated by older and more advanced species. For years, humans had worked hard to build relationships with these alien races, hoping to gain their trust and respect. It wasn't easy. Many of the other species saw humans as reckless and untrustworthy, too quick to act without thinking about the consequences. Daniel Carter was one of the few people who believed that diplomacy could bridge the gap between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. He was a tall man with short brown hair and a calm demeanor. His voice carried authority, but he always spoke with kindness, even when tensions were high. As Earth's top diplomat, Daniel spent most of his time traveling from planet to planet, meeting with leaders of alien civilizations and negotiating treaties that would benefit everyone involved. Daniel had a reputation for being fair and honest. He listened carefully to what others had to say and tried his best to understand their point of view. Over time, he earned the respect of many, though not all, of the alien leaders. Some still viewed him, and humanity, with suspicion, believing that humans were only interested in expanding their influence and taking resources for themselves. One day, Daniel received an urgent message from the Galactic Council. The council was made up of representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy, and it served as the governing body for interstellar affairs. They had summoned him to their headquarters on Zarathus, a distant planet known for its shimmering silver cities and strict laws. Daniel didn't know why he was being called, but he prepared himself for whatever lay ahead. When he arrived at the council chambers, the atmosphere was tense. Representatives from various alien species sat in a large circular room, their expressions serious. At the center of the room stood Chancellor Lyran, the leader of the council. She was a tall, pale-skinned creature with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. Her presence commanded attention, and she wasted no time getting to the point. "Daniel Carter," she began, her voice cold and unwavering. "You stand accused of espionage against the Galactic Council." Daniel blinked, caught off guard by the accusation. "Espionage? That's ridiculous. I've done nothing wrong." Lyran ignored his protest. "Evidence has been presented to us showing that you have been gathering sensitive information about our military capabilities and sharing it with your government." "That's not true," Daniel said firmly. "I don't know where this so-called evidence came from, but it's false. I've always acted in good faith." The other council members murmured among themselves, some appearing skeptical, while others seemed convinced of his guilt. One of the representatives, a bulky creature with thick scales and glowing red eyes, leaned forward. "We have intercepted communications between you and Earth officials. These messages contain classified details about our defense systems." Daniel shook his head. "Those communications are routine reports. There's nothing classified in them. You're twisting innocent exchanges into something they're not." Chancellor Lyran raised a hand, silencing the room. "Enough. The council has reviewed the evidence and reached a verdict. Daniel Carter, you are found guilty of espionage. The punishment for this crime is execution." A wave of shock rippled through the chamber. Even Daniel struggled to process what he had just heard. Execution? Without a trial? This is outrageous. "There will be no further discussion," Lyran said, her tone final. "The sentence will be carried out immediately." Before Daniel could respond, guards stepped forward and seized him. He struggled against their grip, shouting protests, but it was no use. They dragged him out of the room and into a holding cell nearby. As he sat there, alone and overwhelmed, he realized the gravity of the situation. The council had made a decision, and there was nothing he could do to change it. Back on Earth, news of Daniel's arrest spread quickly. People tuned in to watch live coverage of the events unfolding on Zarathus. Rachel Monroe, a close friend of Daniel's, watched the broadcast from her office in New York City. Rachel was a brilliant military strategist, known for her ability to stay calm under pressure. She had collaborated with Daniel on several missions, and they had formed a strong bond over the years. As she listened to the accusations against him, Rachel felt anger rising inside her. She knew Daniel better than anyone, and she refused to believe he was guilty. "This isn't justice," she muttered to herself. "It's a setup." Her suspicions deepened when the council announced they would execute Daniel via disintegration, a brutal method reserved for the worst offenders. The execution was scheduled to take place within hours, leaving no time for appeals or investigations. Rachel clenched her fists, feeling powerless to stop what was about to happen. That evening, billions of people across the globe gathered around screens to witness the grim spectacle. The council chambers on Zorathis were packed with spectators, eager to see how humanity's representative would face his fate. Daniel was brought onto a platform in the center of the room, surrounded by guards. His hands were bound, but his expression remained defiant. Chancellor Liren addressed the crowd, her voice echoing throughout the chamber. "Today, we send a message to all those who would dare challenge the authority of the Galactic Council. Espionage will not be tolerated." As the disintegration device powered up, Daniel looked directly at the camera broadcasting the event. "To my friends, my family, and everyone back on Earth, don't let them win. Fight for what's right." Then, with a flash of light, he was gone. Silence fell over the council chambers, followed by applause from some of the spectators. But on Earth, the reaction was far different. Streets erupted in protests as people expressed their outrage. Buildings were adorned with makeshift memorials honoring Daniel's memory. Social media platforms were flooded with messages of grief and calls for action. Rachel sat in her office, staring blankly at the screen. She replayed Daniel's final words in her mind, feeling a mix of sorrow and determination. "Fight for what's right," he had said. Those words resonated deeply with her. Humanity couldn't let this injustice go unanswered. Something had to be done. Over the next few days, discussions took place at the highest levels of government. Military leaders debated whether retaliation was wise, given humanity's relatively weak position compared to the Council's forces. Diplomats argued that peaceful negotiations might still be possible, despite the Council's actions. But public sentiment was clear. People wanted justice and they were willing to fight for it. Rachel found herself at the center of these conversations. Her expertise in strategy made her a valuable asset, and her personal connection to Daniel gave her a unique perspective on the issue. She spent long hours poring over maps of the galaxy, analyzing the strengths and weaknesses of both sides. Slowly, a plan began to form in her mind. One evening, Rachel met with Admiral Jacob Hayes, a seasoned veteran of interstellar conflicts. Jacob was a gruff but intelligent man with decades of experience leading space fleets. He had initially opposed the idea of war, believing that diplomacy was the better path. But after seeing the Council's treatment of Daniel, his views began to shift. "What do you think we should do?" Jacob asked, leaning back in his chair. "We need to show them that we won't back down," Rachel replied. "If we want to protect ourselves and earn respect in the galaxy, we have to stand up to them." Jacob nodded thoughtfully. "It won't be easy. Their technology is far superior to ours." "I know," Rachel said. "But we have something they don't. Determination. And if we play our cards right, we might just have a chance." Together, they began laying the groundwork for what would become humanity's boldest move yet, a declaration of war against the Galactic Council. Though the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, Rachel felt a glimmer of hope. If they succeeded, it wouldn't just be about avenging Daniel. It would be about proving that humanity deserved a place among the stars. For now, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what Earth's response would be. Little did anyone know, the events set in motion by the Council's decision would change the course of history forever. The days following Daniel Carter's execution were filled with tension and uncertainty. Across Earth, protests continued to grow, with people demanding action against the Galactic Council. Governments around the world held emergency meetings, trying to decide how to respond. The pressure mounted as public opinion shifted toward retaliation. Many believed that humanity could no longer afford to be passive in the face of such blatant injustice. Rachel Monroe was at the center of it all. Her office became a hub of activity, with military leaders, politicians, and strategists coming and going at all hours. Rachel worked tirelessly, barely sleeping as she pieced together a plan for humanity's response. She knew that declaring war on the Council was a risky move, but she also understood that doing nothing would only embolden their enemies. If humanity wanted to survive and thrive, it needed to show strength. Admiral Jacob Hayes joined Rachel in her efforts, bringing decades of experience to the table. Jacob was a tall man with graying hair and a stern expression, but his eyes softened when he spoke about Daniel. Like Rachel, he had known Daniel personally and felt the weight of his loss deeply. "We can't let this go unanswered," Jacob said during one of their late-night strategy sessions. "If we do, they'll think we're weak, and weakness is something the Council won't respect." Rachel nodded. "I agree, but we need to be smart about this. We can't just charge in blindly. We're outnumbered and outgunned. We have to find a way to level the playing field." Together, they began analyzing the Council's strengths and weaknesses. The Council controlled vast territories across the galaxy, including resource-rich planets and advanced technology. Their fleets were larger and more powerful than anything humanity had ever faced. But there were cracks in their armor. The Council wasn't a unified force. Many of its member species had their own agendas and rivalries. If humanity could exploit those divisions, they might stand a chance. One of the key figures working alongside Rachel and Jacob was Emily Dawson, a young engineer with a sharp mind and boundless energy. Emily had spent years developing cutting-edge weapons and defense systems for the military. Her latest project, codenamed Eclipse, was a top-secret weapon designed to disable enemy shields. It was still in the testing phase, but if it worked, it could give humanity a significant advantage. Emily's lab was a chaotic mix of tools, wires, and glowing screens. She rarely slept, fueled by coffee and determination. Every time she thought about Daniel's execution, her resolve strengthened. "This isn't just about revenge," she told herself. "It's about making sure no one else has to suffer like he did." As the days passed, the United Earth Senate convened to discuss the situation. Rachel stood before the assembled delegates, her voice steady despite the enormity of what she was proposing. "We cannot allow the Council to treat us as expendable," she said. "Their actions have shown that diplomacy alone will not protect us. If we want to secure our future, we must fight." Her words struck a chord with the senators. They voted overwhelmingly in favor of declaring war on the Galactic Council. The decision sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For the first time in history, humanity was taking a stand against the most powerful governing body in existence. With the declaration of war came immediate challenges. Humanity's fleet was small compared to the Council's massive armada, and resources were limited. Jacob took charge of mobilizing the ships, calling upon every available vessel to prepare for battle. He divided the fleet into smaller groups, each assigned to specific regions of space. His strategy was clear: avoid direct confrontation whenever possible and focus on hit-and-run tactics to wear down the enemy. Meanwhile, Emily worked around the clock to perfect Project Eclipse. The weapon relied on a complex algorithm that could detect and disrupt shield frequencies. It was a delicate process, requiring precision and patience. Emily tested it repeatedly, tweaking the design until she was confident it would work. When she finally presented it to Rachel and Jacob, they were impressed. "This could change everything," Jacob said, studying the device. "If we can disable their shields, we'll have a fighting chance." Emily nodded. "Just make sure your pilots are ready. Once the shields go down, you'll need to strike fast." As preparations continued, news of humanity's defiance reached the Council chambers on Zorathus. Chancellor Lyran listened to reports of Earth's mobilization with a mixture of anger and disbelief. "They dare to challenge us?" she asked, her voice dripping with disdain. "After everything we've done to show them their place?" Some of the Council members shared her outrage, while others expressed concern. One representative, a slender, silver-skinned alien named Kale Varn, spoke up cautiously. "Perhaps we underestimated them," he said. "Humans are unpredictable. If we push too hard, we risk creating an even greater threat." Lyran dismissed his concerns with a wave of her hand. "They are insects compared to us. Their rebellion will be crushed quickly, and they will learn to obey." Kale didn't argue further. but he couldn't shake the feeling that Liren was making a mistake. He had always been skeptical of the Council's treatment of weaker species, believing that fear and oppression only bred resentment. Now, watching humanity rise up, he wondered if his doubts had been justified. Back on Earth, the first major engagement of the war approached. The Council had sent a fleet to patrol the Andromeda Expanse, a region of space rich in minerals and strategically important. Jacob decided to strike there, hoping to catch the enemy off guard. He assembled a group of ships, including several, equipped with prototypes of Project Eclipse. The battle began under the cover of darkness. Human ships emerged from behind asteroids and debris fields, launching surprise attacks on the Council's vessels. The Council forces were caught off guard, struggling to respond to the sudden onslaught. Using hit-and-run tactics, Jacob's fleet inflicted significant damage before retreating to safety. It was a small victory, but it boosted morale back on Earth. People cheered as footage of the battle aired on news channels. For the first time in weeks, there was a sense of hope. Humanity had proven that it could hold its own against the Council's forces, but the cost of the battle was high. Several human ships were lost, and many lives were sacrificed. Among the fallen was Lieutenant Marcus Reed, a young pilot who had volunteered for the mission despite knowing the risks. His bravery inspired others, and stories of his heroism spread quickly. As the dust settled, Rachel reflected on the outcome. The attack had been successful, but it was only the beginning. The Council would retaliate, and next time they would be better prepared. Humanity needed to stay one step ahead if it hoped to survive. Emily returned to her lab, determined to improve. Project Eclipse. She knew that the weapon would play a crucial role in future battles, and she couldn't afford to rest. Late into the night, she tinkered with the device, running simulations and making adjustments. Her hands moved quickly, her mind focused entirely on the task at hand. Jacob, meanwhile, reviewed the battle footage, looking for ways to refine their tactics. He knew that humanity's strength lay in its adaptability and creativity. Unlike the Council, which relied on sheer power, humans could think outside the box and come up with unconventional solutions. That flexibility gave them an edge, even against overwhelming odds. Rachel found herself thinking about Daniel often. His final words, "Fight for what's right," echoed in her mind. She felt a deep sense of responsibility to honor his memory and ensure that his sacrifice wasn't in vain. Every decision she made, every plan she devised was driven by that goal. In the days that followed, humanity continued to prepare for the battles ahead. Ships were upgraded, new recruits trained, and strategies refined. The Council watched these developments with growing unease. Though they publicly dismissed humanity's efforts as futile, privately, some of their members began to question whether they had underestimated their opponent. On Zorathis, Cale Varn observed the unfolding events with a mixture of curiosity and concern. He had always believed that fear and aggression were not the answers to conflict. Watching humanity rally together, united by a common cause, made him reconsider his loyalty to the Council. Perhaps there was another way, a path toward peace rather than destruction. For now, the galaxy remained divided, with humanity standing defiant against the Council's dominance. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but Rachel, Jacob, Emily, and countless others were ready to face whatever challenges lay in store. They knew that the fight wouldn't be easy, but they also knew that giving up was not an option. As the stars twinkled in the night sky, humanity looked outward with determination. The war had begun, and though the outcome was uncertain, one thing was clear: humanity would not go quietly into the darkness. The war between humanity and the Galactic Council had reached a critical point. After the initial skirmish in the Andromeda Expanse, both sides were preparing for larger confrontations. The Council, angered by humanity's defiance, began mobilizing more ships and resources to crush the rebellion once and for all. Meanwhile, Earth's forces worked tirelessly to strengthen their position, knowing that every battle could be their last. Rachel Monroe spent most of her time coordinating strategies with Admiral Jacob Hayes. They reviewed intelligence reports, analyzed enemy movements, and planned their next move. Rachel knew that simply surviving wasn't enough. They needed a decisive victory to prove that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. She proposed targeting one of the Council's key fleets stationed near Orion's Belt, a region rich in resources and heavily defended. "We can't keep playing defense," Rachel said during one of their meetings. "If we want to turn the tide, we need to hit them where it hurts." Jacob nodded. "Orion's Belt is risky, but you're right. If we pull this off, it'll send a message to the Council and give us a morale boost." Emily Dawson played a crucial role in preparing for the mission. Her Project Eclipse had been refined after the battle in Andromeda, and she was confident it would work against the Council's shields. She installed the devices on several ships, ensuring they were ready for deployment. Emily also trained the pilots on how to use the weapon effectively, emphasizing the importance of timing and precision. As the fleet prepared to launch, tension filled the air. Pilots checked their equipment, engineers made final adjustments to the ships, and soldiers mentally prepared for what lay ahead. Among them was Captain Laura Bennett, a seasoned pilot known for her bravery and quick thinking. Laura had lost friends in previous battles, and she carried their memory with her as she suited up for the mission. The journey to Orion's Belt took several days. During that time, Rachel and Jacob monitored communications from the Council, looking for any signs of movement. To their relief, the enemy fleet remained unaware of their approach. When they finally arrived, the human ships positioned themselves behind asteroid fields using the cover to avoid detection. The attack began at dawn. Human ships emerged from hiding, catching the Council fleet completely off guard. Emily's Project Eclipse proved invaluable. As the first wave of ships approached, the devices activated, disabling the Council's shields. Without their defenses, the Council vessels were vulnerable and humanity's fighters moved in swiftly to strike. The battle was intense. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as ships fired lasers and missiles at each other. Despite being outnumbered, the human forces fought with determination. Laura led her squadron in daring maneuvers, weaving through enemy fire and taking out key targets. Her skill inspired those around her, and soon the Council fleet began to falter. Back on Earth, people watched live broadcasts of the battle, holding their breath as the outcome hung in the balance. When news came that the Council fleet had been defeated, celebrations erupted across the planet. It was a turning point in the war, proving that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with its enemies. But the victory came at a cost. Many ships were damaged or destroyed, and dozens of lives were lost. Laura returned to base somberly, remembering the faces of comrades who hadn't made it back. Still, she knew their sacrifice hadn't been in vain. The battle at Orion's Belt had given humanity hope and momentum. Among the Council members, reactions to the defeat were mixed. Chancellor Liren was furious, demanding immediate retaliation. "This cannot stand," she declared during an emergency meeting. "We must crush them now before they grow stronger." Others, however, were less certain. Kyle Varn, who had quietly opposed the execution of Daniel Carter, saw the loss at Orion's Belt as evidence that humanity couldn't be underestimated. He approached Liren privately, urging caution. "They are not like other species," he said. "Their creativity and resilience make them dangerous opponents. Continuing this war will only lead to more destruction for both sides." Liren dismissed his concerns, accusing him of sympathizing with the enemy. But Kale couldn't ignore his growing doubts. He began secretly gathering information about the Council's operations, hoping to find a way to end the conflict without further bloodshed. On Earth, Rachel and Jacob reflected on the victory at Orion's Belt. While it boosted morale, they knew the Council wouldn't give up easily. They needed a plan to deal a decisive blow, one that would cripple the Council's ability to wage war. Rachel suggested targeting Zorathis, the Council's central headquarters. It was a bold and risky idea, but if successful, it could bring the war to an end. "We'd need precise intelligence to pull it off," Jacob said. "Zorathis is heavily fortified, and getting close would be nearly impossible." Rachel nodded. "I know. But if we can infiltrate their systems and disable their defenses, we might have a chance." To execute the plan, they needed help from someone on the inside. That's when Cale Varn reached out to Rachel. Using encrypted channels, he contacted her and offered his assistance. Cale explained that he disagreed with the Council's treatment of humanity and wanted to prevent further suffering. He provided detailed maps of Zorathus's defenses and schedules of patrol routes, giving humanity a vital advantage. Rachel was cautious at first, unsure whether to trust him. But after verifying his information, she agreed to collaborate. With Cale's help, she devised a daring operation, a two-pronged assault involving stealth ships infiltrating Zorathus's atmosphere while ground teams attacked the Council chambers. Directly, Emily worked tirelessly to prepare the stealth ships, equipping them with advanced cloaking technology to avoid detection. She also modified Project Eclipse to target Zorathus's planetary shield system. "This is our best shot," she told Rachel. "If we can disable the shields, your ground team will have a clear path to the Council chambers." As the day of the mission approached, Rachel assembled a small group of operatives to lead the ground assault. Among them was Lieutenant Chris Hale, a skilled soldier with experience in covert operations. Chris had volunteered for the mission, knowing the risks involved. Like many others, he felt a personal stake in avenging Daniel Carter and protecting humanity's future. The operation began under the cover of darkness. Stealth ships slipped past Zorathus's orbital defenses, guided by Cale's intel. Once in position, Emily activated Project Eclipse, successfully disabling the planetary shields. The ground team descended onto the surface, navigating through streets patrolled by Council enforcers. Inside the Council chambers, Chancellor Liren addressed her advisors, unaware of the danger closing in. "Humanity's defiance will soon come to an end," she said confidently. "Once we destroy their remaining fleets, they will have no choice but to surrender." Moments later, alarms blared throughout the building. Guards scrambled to respond as Rachel and her team breached the perimeter. Gunfire echoed through the halls as they fought their way toward the main chamber. Chris led the charge, his training and determination shining through as he took down enemy after enemy. When they finally reached the Council chambers, Rachel confronted Chancellor Liren. The room was in chaos, with debris scattered everywhere and smoke filling the air. Liren stood defiantly, refusing to back down even as her forces crumbled around her. "You think this changes anything?" Liren spat. "You humans are nothing but pests, destined to fail." Rachel stepped forward, her voice steady. "We may be pests, but we're pests who refuse to be exterminated. Your reign of fear ends here." With no other options left, Rachel activated a fail-safe device Cale had provided. The explosion collapsed part of the structure, cutting off the Council's ability to coordinate its forces. Though Liren escaped, the damage had been done. The Council's grip on power was severely weakened. Back in orbit, Jacob gave the order to withdraw once the mission objectives were achieved. The fleet retreated to safety, leaving Zorathus in disarray. On Earth, celebrations broke out as news of the victory spread. Humanity had struck a crippling blow to the Council, proving that it could fight and win against overwhelming odds. Cale Varn disappeared after the attack, severing ties with the Council. He hoped to rebuild trust between humanity and the alien races, advocating for a new era of cooperation rather than domination. For Rachel, Jacob, Emily, and everyone else involved, the war was far from over, but for the first time there was a glimmer of hope for peace. As Rachel looked out at the stars from her office window, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. The road ahead would still be difficult, but humanity had shown that it was capable of standing up to even the greatest powers in the galaxy. Whatever challenges remained, they would face them together. The aftermath of the attack on Zorathus sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The once unshakable Galactic Council was now fractured, its leadership in disarray. Chancellor Liren had survived the assault, but lost much of her authority. Many Council members accused her of mismanaging the war against humanity and demanded answers. The Council's central headquarters lay in ruins, a symbol of their weakened grip on power. On Earth, the mood was a mix of triumph and exhaustion. People celebrated the victory at Zorathus, but they also mourned the lives lost in the battle. Monuments were erected in cities around the world to honor those who had sacrificed everything for the cause. Rachel Monroe stood before one such memorial. In New York City, her eyes fixed on the names engraved in stone. She felt a deep sense of pride in what humanity had achieved, but also a heavy burden. The war had come at a great cost, and rebuilding would take time. Admiral Jacob Hayes shared Rachel's feelings. He walked the halls of the United Earth Military Command, his mind replaying the battles they had fought. Though they had won significant victories, he knew that true peace required more than military might. It needed trust, understanding, and cooperation, things that couldn't be forced by weapons alone. Emily Dawson returned to her lab, exhausted but determined to keep working. Project Eclipse had played a crucial role in humanity's success, but she believed there was still room for improvement. Instead of focusing solely on weapons, Emily shifted her attention to developing tools that could aid in diplomacy and peaceful negotiations. "We've proven we can fight," she told herself. "Now we need to prove we can build." Cale Varn emerged as an unexpected ally in the post-war period. After severing ties with the Council, he traveled to Earth to meet with Rachel and Jacob. Cale's decision to help humanity had been controversial among his own people, and he faced backlash from those who saw him as a traitor. But he remained steadfast in his belief that the galaxy needed a new order, one based on mutual respect rather than fear. Rachel welcomed Kyle warmly when they met. "You took a big risk coming here," she said. "Not everyone will trust you." "I know," Cale replied. "But I believe this is the right path. Humanity has shown courage and resilience. If anyone can lead the way toward a better future, it's you." Together, Rachel and Cale began laying the groundwork for a new galactic alliance. They reached out to other alien species, inviting them to join discussions about creating a more inclusive governing body. Some were hesitant, still wary of humanity's intentions, but others saw the potential for positive change. Slowly, alliances began to form, built on shared goals and a desire for peace. One of the key figures in these efforts was Ambassador Lisa Nguyen, a soft-spoken yet persuasive diplomat who had worked alongside Daniel Carter before his death. Lisa understood the complexities of interstellar relations and used her skills to bridge gaps between humanity and other species. Her calm demeanor and ability to listen earned her respect, even from former adversaries. As negotiations progressed, humanity faced challenges closer to home. The war had strained Earth's resources, leaving many regions struggling to recover. Cities damaged during the conflict required rebuilding, and industries disrupted by the war needed time to stabilize. Rachel and Jacob worked closely with governments around the world to address these issues, ensuring that no one was left behind. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Chris Hale found himself adjusting to life after combat. Like many soldiers, he struggled with the emotional toll of the war. Memories of fallen comrades haunted him, and he often wondered if the sacrifices had been worth it. To cope, Chris joined a program aimed at helping veterans reintegrate into civilian life. Through counseling and community service, he began to heal, finding purpose in supporting others who had endured similar struggles. Back in space, humanity's fleets patrolled newly liberated territories, ensuring that peace agreements were upheld. Admiral Jacob Hayes personally oversaw these operations, emphasizing the importance of restraint. "We're not conquerors," he reminded his officers. "Our goal is to protect, not dominate." Despite the progress, tensions lingered. Some factions within the Council refused to accept humanity's rise and plotted to reclaim their dominance. Spies reported whispers of rebellion, with rogue ships conducting hit-and-run attacks on human outposts. Rachel and Jacob remained vigilant, knowing that the fight wasn't truly over until all threats were neutralized. In one such skirmish, Laura Bennett led her squadron against a group of renegade vessels near the edge of Council-controlled space. The battle was fierce, but Laura's experience and quick thinking turned the tide. Afterward, she reflected on how far humanity had come since the early days of the war. "We didn't just survive," she said to her crew. "We proved that we belong here, with the rest of the galaxy." As months passed, the foundation for a new galactic order took shape. Representatives from dozens of species gathered on Earth for historic talks, aimed at drafting a charter for cooperation. Kyle Varn played a pivotal role, advocating for fairness and equality in the new system. His efforts helped ease lingering distrust, paving the way for meaningful collaboration. Rachel delivered a speech at the closing ceremony of the talks, addressing delegates from across the galaxy. "This isn't just a victory for humanity," she said. "It's a victory for all of us. We've proven that differences don't have to divide us, that together we can achieve greatness." Her words resonated deeply, earning applause from the audience. For the first time in years, there was hope that the galaxy could move beyond conflict and embrace unity. Though scars remained, humanity had earned its place among the stars. No longer seen as outsiders or inferiors, humans were now respected members of the galactic community. Rachel looked up at the night sky, feeling a sense of accomplishment. The road ahead would still have challenges, but she knew humanity was ready to face them, not as conquerors, but as partners. Kale approached her after the ceremony, smiling. "You've done something remarkable," he said. "I'm proud to have been part of it." Rachel nodded. "We couldn't have done it without you, or without everyone who believed in this vision. This is just the beginning." As fireworks lit up the sky above Earth, celebrating a new era of peace and cooperation, Rachel allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. Humanity had fought hard to earn its seat at the table, and though the journey had been long and painful, it had been worth it. Together they had forged a brighter future, not just for themselves, but for the entire galaxy. The galaxy was beginning to heal, but the scars of war ran deep. Even as humanity celebrated its newfound status among the stars, challenges remained. The destruction caused by years of conflict had left entire regions of space unstable, and rebuilding efforts required cooperation on an unprecedented scale. Rachel Monroe found herself at the center of these efforts, working tirelessly to ensure that peace wasn't just a temporary ceasefire, but a lasting reality. One of the biggest hurdles was addressing the grievances of alien species who had suffered under the Council's rule. Many of these groups viewed humanity with suspicion, fearing that they might simply replace the Council as the dominant power. To counter this perception, Rachel and her team launched outreach programs designed to foster trust and understanding. They traveled to distant planets, meeting with local leaders and listening to their concerns. It was slow, difficult work, but every small victory brought them closer to true unity. Ambassador Lisa Nguyen played a crucial role in these diplomatic missions. Her ability to connect with people from different cultures made her invaluable in bridging divides. During one such visit to the aquatic planet of Aquarian, Lisa spent hours underwater in a specially designed suit, speaking with representatives of the native species. Though communication was challenging due to language barriers, Lisa's patience and empathy won them over. By the end of the visit, Aquarian agreed to join the new Galactic Alliance, marking a significant step forward. Back on Earth, Admiral Jacob Hayes focused on restructuring humanity's military forces. With the war officially over, there was no need for large-scale combat fleets. Instead, Jacob advocated for transforming the military into a peacekeeping force dedicated to protecting weaker species and maintaining stability across the galaxy. He introduced training programs that emphasized diplomacy and cultural sensitivity, ensuring that soldiers were prepared to handle conflicts without resorting to violence. Emily Dawson continued to innovate, shifting her focus from weapons to tools that could aid in reconstruction and exploration. One of her most ambitious projects was a device capable of terraforming barren planets, making them habitable for displaced populations. She called it Project Genesis, and though it was still in its early stages, initial tests showed promising results. "If we can turn dead worlds into thriving ecosystems," Emily explained to Rachel, "we can give millions of people a second chance." Kyle Varn became a symbol of hope for many alien species disillusioned with the old ways of the Council. His decision to side with humanity inspired others to seek change within their own communities. He traveled extensively, sharing stories of collaboration and resilience. "The past doesn't define us," he often said during his speeches. "What matters is how we choose to move forward." Despite these positive developments, not everyone supported the new order. Some factions within the former council refused to accept humanity's rise and plotted to undermine the alliance. Spies uncovered evidence of secret meetings where rogue leaders discussed plans to destabilize the coalition. Rachel and Jacob took immediate action, deploying surveillance drones and increasing patrols in vulnerable areas. In one tense incident, Laura Bennett led her squadron to intercept a group of smugglers transporting illegal weapons near the border of unclaimed space. The smugglers resisted, leading to a brief but intense firefight. Laura's quick thinking allowed her team to disable the enemy ships without causing casualties. When questioned, the smugglers revealed they were working for a shadowy organization, calling itself the Shadow Council, a name meant to evoke fear and nostalgia for the old regime. Rachel convened an emergency meeting with Kale and other key figures to discuss the threat posed by the Shadow Council. "They're trying to exploit fears and divisions," Rachel said. "We need to act fast before they gain more followers." Kale nodded. "I've heard whispers about them among my contacts. They're clever, using propaganda to paint humanity as oppressors. We must counter their narrative with actions, not words." To combat the Shadow Council's influence, Rachel launched a campaign highlighting the benefits of the new alliance. She organized cultural exchange programs, inviting delegations from various species to visit Earth and witness firsthand the progress being made. These exchanges fostered friendships and dispelled misconceptions, weakening the Shadow Council's grip on public opinion. Lieutenant Chris Hale also contributed to the effort, volunteering to lead educational workshops for young recruits. Drawing. On his experiences as a soldier and veteran advocate, Chris taught the importance of empathy and teamwork. "War teaches you how to fight," he told his students, "but peace teaches you how to live." As months turned into years, the galaxy began to stabilize. Trade routes reopened, allowing goods and ideas to flow freely between planets. Scientists collaborated on groundbreaking research, while artists shared their creations with audiences, light years away. Humanity's influence grew, not through domination, but through partnership. One day, Rachel received a message from an unexpected source, Chancellor Liren. Once the face of oppression, Liren now lived in exile, stripped of her title and authority. In her transmission, she expressed regret for her actions during the war and asked for a chance to contribute to the new order. Rachel hesitated, unsure whether to trust her, but ultimately decided to grant the request. Liren arrived on Earth. Under heavy guard, her once proud demeanor replaced by humility. During their meeting, she spoke candidly about the mistakes she had made and offered insights into the inner workings of the old council. While some dismissed her as irrelevant, Rachel saw value in her knowledge. "Even those who have done wrong deserve a chance to make amends," Rachel told Jacob. "Besides, her experience could help us avoid repeating history." The final piece of the puzzle fell into place when the charter for the new Galactic Alliance was formally ratified. Representatives from over 50 species gathered on Earth to sign the document, pledging to uphold principles of equality, cooperation, and mutual respect. As Rachel watched the ceremony unfold, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Humanity had come so far, from being dismissed as insignificant newcomers to becoming leaders and forging a brighter future. Afterward, Kale approached Rachel, smiling warmly. "You've created something extraordinary," he said. "Something I never thought possible." Rachel shook her head modestly. "It wasn't me. It was all of us, working together, believing in something greater than ourselves." Though the journey had been long and fraught with challenges, humanity had proven that it was capable of rising above adversity. Together with their allies, they had built a foundation for lasting peace, a legacy that would endure for generations to come. As Rachel gazed up at the stars, she felt a quiet pride knowing that humanity's story was just beginning.